10, and he is into the end zone for Baltimore.
Madden 27's franchise mode received more attention this year from EA than it has in many, many years. Free agent frenzy, an all-new UI layout, more options for how you offer player contracts, and what EA is calling the Persona engine drive new methods for how you interact with your 53-man roster and try to build a Super Bowl contender. However, it's one thing to add a bunch of new features, it's a whole other thing making them functional. So today we'll be telling you what's new in franchise mode and what amidst all the new stuff is actually useful. EA has unquestionably placed a renewed focus on its most popular and most played mode in recent times, and nothing has received more love in franchise mode than the UI and the overall aesthetics, both in the menus and on the field. Yes, our long national nightmare is over, as the UI in this game is finally snappier and faster than Joe Flacco's 40-yard dash time. Now, every franchise mode is at least one part RPG and one part spreadsheet simulator. If you don't think the spreadsheet simulator part of a franchise mode is the most important part of it, well, I regret to inform you, I'm the astronaut behind you right now telling you, always has been. Thankfully, cycling between menus is much more fluid this year, and getting in and out of sub-menus no longer leads to painful load times that make you dread applying skill points to your players. While I still think there's plenty of stuff that's needed in these menus, such as making the handy new contracts page available for every team rather than just the one you're controlling, because holy crap, this is the best new screen in the whole game and why isn't it everywhere, it's still a massive step up from previous years. A much improved weekly halftime show and weekly recap keep you engaged with stories from around the league, and dynamic weather gives week-to-week matchups some mystery, assuming you don't play in a dome. I've had a snowstorm breakout during the final drive of a game. Yes, Broncos fans, it can happen in Madden as well, and then other times I've had stop and start rain that changes throughout 4 quarters. Real NFL coordinators are now in the game too, and these assistants will even become head coaches for other teams later in franchise mode. Not everyone made it in. We're missing Eagles defensive coordinator Vic Fangio as an example, but your damn skippy Jim Bob Cooter is in the game.
Here's the one ushering them to the field's coordinator, Jim Bob Cooter.
But whether it's a fake coach last year or Jim Bob this year, these coaches still change your pregame loadouts every week, even if you had them set up the way you wanted the week prior, so keep in mind you'll need to manually swap them back before each game. There's also a functional coach mode this year, so if you prefer only calling in the plays every week, you can execute your game plan and actually trust your AI QB will properly run things like RPOs or scramble out of the pocket rather than take sack after sack. It's very similar to the coach mode in its sister title, College Football, with the one unfortunate difference being the broadcast cam that's in CFB is much better right now than the one in Madden, as College Football's allows you to see far more of the secondary during passing plays. I do hope that is patched at some point. Another thing that can bring down the experience right now in franchise mode is the wear and tear system. EA said they improved wear and tear for Madden 27, but that's simply not the case, as once again it is overtuned and kind of busted, even more so than it has been in College Football. EA has said a patch will be coming to fix it, but for now your players will routinely be banged up even during preseason. EA implemented this wear and tear system a couple years ago, but there is some level of irony that the year we finally have a usable coach mode again is also the year I have to mention that the last time EA got wear and tear right was with NFL head coach 09. Nevertheless, currently busted stuff aside, all this added flavor and optionality helps to keep things fresh as you put together winning seasons. Another revamped part of the UI is the main screen you work from. It now has tiles you cycle through that lay out all your tasks for that week. You can delegate, skip, or interact with all these tiles, and this screen is designed to be one part organizer and one part news hub. We'll get to the news aspect in its own section since that has a lot of issues, but the point is, you should never really miss anything if you check this hub screen. That said, there is a problem that can arise if you're someone who likes simming multiple weeks at a time. In these instances, the game will do things for you even if you have everything set to manual in the menu. For example, when a player comes to you asking for a new contract, if you ignore the request that week and don't click the option to tell him you'll get back to him down the line, the CPU will sign him after you sim to the next week. This can also happen if you sim ahead multiple weeks, since that means you are not doing any of the tasks during those given weeks. Games like NBA 2K or MLB The Show will always ask you before they make a change to your roster. Madden 27 doesn't, and contracts you never planned on signing can have long-term ramifications for your cap space, especially when the contracts the AI signs for you are much more lucrative than the ones you can sign the player for if you are in control of the negotiation. Speaking of contracts and cap space, I apologize in advance, but I have to nerd out here and talk about the NFL salary cap for a bit. EA chose this year to try and add more parts of the collective bargaining agreement, aka the CBA, to Madden 27, including no trade clauses, void years, early extensions, transition tags, RFAs, and comp picks to the bag of tricks for virtual GMs to utilize to manipulate the salary cap. About the only major things that are not here are roster bonuses and June 1st designations. These are huge additions for the realism and depth of the mode because manipulating the cap is a huge part of an NFL GM's job. Along with solid drafting, it's a massive way teams can get a leg up on each other as they seek to spend now and pay later. Teams who are currently competitive will use these tools to keep the window open as long as they can before they finally have to pay up in the form of massive amounts of dead money. However, Madden does not explain most of these new contract options to you, so here's a quick primer on some of the new contract options you might run into. First up are void years. Think of these like fake years that exist to spread bonuses across as many as 5 seasons. If I give a player a $25 million bonus in a 1-year contract with 4 void years, this means I will only have $5 million on the cap that first season, assuming that player continues to play for my team all of those seasons. However, a player can't actually play on a void year, so if you want to continue to kick the can down the road and not get $20 million in dead money added to your salary cap all at once, you would need to sign that player again next season and add void years once more to continue to keep that cap hit low. The GTD years will show up with little check marks next to the number of seasons you're choosing to guarantee when offering the contract. Signing bonuses are always guaranteed, but the GTD years guarantee the base salary column as well for the given seasons. Madden does not have roster bonuses, so I think this is their version of implementing those. 5th-year options are something you can choose to select for the final year of first-round rookie contracts, and they are based on the average of the NFL salaries at that position. That said, Madden 27 does not currently average the salary correctly, so you will need to be careful. I have seen a normal number like Bo Nix making about $40 million on his 5th-year option, but I've also seen Drake May make $75+ million on his 5th-year rookie contract. I do not know how Madden is coming up with such a high number for May, but it is incorrect. A transition tag means other teams are allowed to offer a contract to that player, but you can match the offer. This particular tag ultimately allowed Daniel Jones to get the largest 2-year contract in history from the Colts this past summer. Non-exclusive franchise tag, perhaps even less used than the transition tag, this is a franchise tag where another team can still sign your player, but if they do sign him, you will get 2 first-round picks for him. Now, as for compensation picks, you can tag free agents with a certain type of restricted free agency tender if certain factors are met. It's a bit complicated, but Madden will tell you when you can do this or not. The higher the round pick you tag the player with, the less likely another team will try to sign that player. If you tag someone with a first-round designation, this means they would lose a first-round pick and you would gain a first-round pick. With that out of the way, I do unfortunately have to mention that while all these new things like void years technically work with a few hiccups, the salary cap is not respected by the CPU. You can routinely see teams well over the cap, and it only gets worse as the years progress in your franchise. In real life, as much as the salary cap can be manipulated, the one thing you can never do is be over the cap during the season. I suspect this issue is due to a legacy bug, but this is frustrating to see since we now have stuff like void years and early extensions that are supposed to be tools that you can use to push the money further down the road. In real life, you rarely see teams with less than $10 million in cap space during the year because they're always worried about going over the cap, and they want to have space to also make a move if an opportunity arises or an injury occurs. In Madden 27, you're lucky if more than a handful of teams have cap space, and it only gets worse the more years you go into franchise mode. So in theory, while all these cap manipulations are cool new features to tinker with, keep in mind your opponents may not be playing by the same rules. Contract negotiations are all new this year, as every negotiation is now a little minigame. You can't enter into contract negotiations with your players minus the usual restructuring like moving base salary to a signing bonus unless they want to talk first. This means you're not going to know when you can sign an extension with a player. If a player chooses to snub you or give you the cold shoulder, it puts a little more pressure on you once you do enter negotiations. Also, be aware, failing is not the end of the world. If you fail a negotiation in week 3, you will likely get at least one more shot before the regular season ends. As for the minigame, it starts with a screen that's not super helpful unless you're a huge salary cap junkie like me because it's static, not dynamic. It doesn't showcase the yearly breakdown of the overall terms of what the contract looks like as you play with the sliders, so most are not going to know what a 4-year, $100 million deal with $40 million in signing bonus actually looks like. You'll need to sign the deal and then look at the contracts page to actually see the full details. In addition, it's not always clear why the default options are what they are on this negotiation screen. For example, during free agency, you can see a player's desired APY and signing bonus ask in the contracts page, but that's not always what then shows up when you actually negotiate. Nevertheless, it's probably best to mention the Persona engine now, as negotiations and scenarios are the two areas it's most visible. Before I go any further, no, EA's version of the Persona engine has nothing to do with a bunch of Japanese high school students battling their inner demons. And I've waited this long to get to the Persona engine, even though it's what EA says is driving most of the interactions in franchise mode, because I don't think you need to worry about it too much from a tactics perspective. The Persona engine is a bunch of personality traits that every player in franchise mode gets tagged with that theoretically drives all their motivations and decisions. It will push them to be loyal to you in contract negotiations, or drive a hard bargain in free agency, and so on. It also plays a role in those emergent scenarios that can give you updated development traits. But here's the thing, I don't know if the Persona engine is really working very well with the scenarios. Here's Saquon Barkley coming to me saying he's unhappy with how he's been playing, and he wants me to challenge him to accomplish a stat goal. Okay, so I challenge him and his morale is at 65% before the goal. He then fails the goal in the next game, comes back to me the next week, and yet his morale is at 68% now. Yeah, the numbers just ain't numbering here. He did get the frustrated temporary DNA though, which apparently was supposed to lower his morale by 5, but clearly it did not. Barkley would then fail again later in the year when I gave him an end-of-year goal to get a certain number of rushing stats, and after failing this goal, his morale went up to 99 and his ratings were still boosted. Point being, I don't think in most cases you need to sweat morale all that much, and with negotiations, it's all sort of spelled out for you how you should treat each persona during the negotiation. You have these 5 tiles that will vary based on the selections you make, and you're trying to fill up the interest meter before the patience meter goes to 0. And I understand more abrasive personalities will take offense when you lowball them and all that, but it's clear in most of the situations which tile or tiles you should pick because the game tells you what personality traits go with each one. You can just look at the personality traits of each player at the top of this negotiation screen to narrow it down. So if you see one of the keywords like Team First from the Mindset and Persona DNA area, and you see that same keyword in one of the 5 tiles for that step of the negotiation, picking the tile that matches up those keywords is usually a good idea to increase your interest meter. Some of you may also get frustrated during negotiations when you just want a tile that will offer the player more money or years, but you may not be getting those options because you simply do not have the cap space to do it. In a future Madden, it would probably be best if there was a negotiation tile that became available explaining that to a player. To be clear, I think it's a great idea to have something like 65 plus different personality traits driving the virtual decisions in this game, but I'm not sure they're all that useful for the time being in most scenarios, including the contract talks. But I do still like the system's potential if EA can wield the system to make more cause and effect outcomes feel interesting. Some other cool additions in Madden 27 like player holdouts and trade demands might go unnoticed because, just like in the real NFL, they're rare. The new system doesn't really tell you when someone in the league is holding out or trying to force a trade either. The best way to tell if someone is holding out for a new deal is by going to the team salary page and then scrolling through and looking for the red hand on the right side of the screen, along with the description that the player is holding out until a new deal gets done. Players forcing a trade is rare in Madden 27, but these are cool emergent moments that should be more in our face than they are right now. Then again, like the new salary cap features, some of these cool new things aren't tuned very well either. Free Agent Frenzy is arguably the biggest change to player movement in franchise mode, and this new 10-hour shopping spree replaces the old system where you would go day by day. The problem is some of the issues from the old system are still here, so there is not always a lot of logic that goes into CPU decisions. People were unhappy that it was basically a first-come, first-served buffet during the beta, as you could enter into negotiations and get a player to sign before anyone else talked to him. This would have been a disaster for online franchises. And even for offline ones, it would have been less than ideal because the CPU does not make any offers until you simulate to the next hour. In the final release, this system has been adjusted, so now you can see which teams are interested in each player. You will now enter a negotiation and try to make your best offer and reach 100% before a player's patience runs out, just like any other negotiation. Then when you simulate the hour, you will find out if you got the player. Unfortunately, there is no feedback system, so you don't really know why you were chosen or not. I've had players with financial mindsets not choose me even after I offer the most money, so I think total years of a deal and also your status as a franchise are factors here as well. Hopefully in the future you get deeper feedback for why you were not chosen, or a player comes back to you and says, hey, the Steelers just offered me this much, can you beat it or not? So you'd have more of a chance to get into real signing battles. Another issue to be aware of is the CPU does not seem to update its team needs during the process. So let's say they sign an edge player in the first hour of free agency, they may sign a bunch of other edges that are all around that same overall rating in the hours that follow. There are some other logic irregularities as well. For example, the Bears tagged DeAndre Swift with the aforementioned transition tag and let him test free agency. Swift would have earned $24 million on a one-year deal, since the transition tag takes the average of the top 10 salaries at the player's position to come up with his one-year contract. There is no scenario where the Bears would transition tag Swift, since they would not want him playing on that deal since he's not a top 10 running back, but regardless, Swift went to free agency and signed a 3-year deal with the Patriots that guaranteed him about $20 million. With this whole saga, the issue is, why would Swift accept this deal from the Patriots when he could just sign the transition tag and make more money? And beyond that, if the Bears were comfortable tagging him for $24 million, why wouldn't they match the offer made by the Patriots, considering it would have made it much cheaper for them to keep him? The news ticker is the biggest offender when it comes to spitting out false information to you in Madden 27. As I said before, you can now sign players with multiple years left in their deal. However, the game was not updated to account for the fact that you don't just sign players who are in the final years of their deal anymore. This causes a couple problems, but one of the big ones is that whenever a contract is changed at all, whether it's a basic restructuring or a full-on long-term extension, you will be informed that an extension has been signed. The issue is the breaking news ticker and the transactions page can't even agree on what happened. Here is Sauce Gardner's contract as an example. You can see the breaking news ticker pop up and the transactions page show different numbers for his contract. So which is it, a 4-year or 5-year deal for Sauce? Here's the kicker, it's neither. This deal already happened. That is the deal he signed in real life last year, which means that's the deal he starts the game with. But the breaking news ticker is resurfacing it because of some stuff happening under the hood. Without getting too deep in the weeds, his contract was restructured by the CPU during the offseason, but the game is treating it like a new deal even though no new money was added to it. You will see similar bugs when it says so-and-so signed a 7-year deal, when it's more likely it's actually just something like a 5-year extension. Ultimately, because right now the game is feeding you so much false info, you may want to at least turn off the breaking news part of the ticker by going into the options menu within franchise mode. The NFL Draft has also gotten some fresh updates, even if the presentation is largely unchanged. CPU teams do now make trades, but it's hard to notice due to the UI still not giving you much of an update. Here's a trade happening in real time in one of my tests, and as you can see, there were no flashing lights or alert sounds. The team on the clock just changed from the Cardinals to the Vikings. You need to leave the draft area and go to the transactions page if you want to see the whole deal. Overall, there are still not enough pick-for-pick trades during the draft by the CPU, but it is more lively than in the past. Some college prospect player heads were also changed. You can tell which are new because usually they're the ones that barely fit in the player portrait now. However, you still will see some 40-year-old construction worker prospects, as EA has not fully brought over the prospect generation system from college football as of yet. I would also recommend lowering the positional strength of defensive tackles and guards in your auto-generated draft classes, as there are still too many good ones at those positions. One bright spot is they did remove the draft note relating to discipline that would give away whether a player had a hidden dev trait or not, so people in your online franchises can no longer use that exploit to find hidden gems late in the draft. You will also get another free agent frenzy for undrafted free agents following the NFL draft, and usually you want to target the players who have interest from many other teams, as more times than not, those are the prospects who have hidden dev traits. Wrapping things up, I want to go through a couple quick hitters. There have been improvements to the sim engine, and the strength of playbooks has been nerfed. This means the Kansas City Chiefs playbook will no longer lead to every tight end becoming Travis Kelce, and teams will even change up their playbook and who they feature to fit the talent on the roster as the years progress. However, too many plays are run per game right now in simulations, or at the very least quarterbacks and a couple other positions don't get hurt often enough. So you'll see too many QBs with over 4,000 yards passing because they're all throwing the ball more than 600 times per season. If you want to combat this, my recommendation would be to micromanage the injury slider. This means play your game with the injury slider at one setting, then raise it to something closer to 50 before simulating the week, as the injury slider impacts the rate of injuries in games you play and simulate. After you advance the week, lower it back down to the number you like using when playing your game, and so on and so forth. I also want to give credit to the variety of stats leaders you will see. While Cam Scattaboo tends to be near the top of the rushing lists every year in all sims, you will not see random slot receivers dominating in the same way anymore. And overall, I've even seen a guy like Patrick Mahomes fluctuate between 4,000 plus yard seasons and ones where he does not even reach 20 touchdown passes. That same variety carries over to stats on defense, where I have even seen a lot of different people lead the league in sacks. Madden is still not classifying linebackers the right way, so guys like Zach Bond will end the year with far too many sacks much of the time, but I'll take the variety even if it comes with missteps. That same variety carries over to retirements. Sometimes Aaron Rodgers immunizes himself against retirement and plays at least one more season beyond year one because he leads the Steelers on a deep playoff run. You will sometimes even get a chance to try and talk one of your players out of retirement. That said, other retirement legacy issues remain, which means too many players league-wide are hanging up their pads at young ages as you get deeper into franchise mode. This means even though there is a league-wide talent level increase across the board since XP gains are too high and almost every team is an 80+ overall by year 5 and beyond, there are far fewer 99 overalls because not many players are playing past the age of 31. Finally, I regret to mention while assistant coaches can become head coaches now, the coach hiring and firing system still lacks coherent logic. Many first-year head coaches will be canned in your franchise modes, usually including Jeff Hafley in Miami and Robert Saleh in Tennessee. Even with me, I won the Super Bowl with the Eagles as Nick Sirianni in year 1, then got fired the next year when I did not make the playoffs, so I think it's mostly judging you based on your contract length and what you did the prior season. But hey, fear not. Even after I got fired by the Eagles, when I went to look for a new job, the Eagles just brought me right back anyway. And that is that. Feel free to let me know who is going to win the Super Bowl in the comments below, and for everything else, stick with IGN.